What's up, everybody? We are back for another edition of Titletown South Florida. This is our third episode. I was away last week, but back this week to get you through some more high school sports, high school football action in particular. It was another great week of action out there in Dade, Broward. And joining me once again is Miami Herald sports writer David Wilson. David, again, great week of football, even though, we all said the schedule was going to be a little weak on a Friday, but there were some good matchups. In particular, one that kind of caught everyone's attention was an instant classic down at Southridge between Doral Academy and Southridge. I mean, we've been talking so much about these elite national powerhouses these last few weeks, but these are some up-and-coming programs that have improved a lot in recent years, and they kind of showed it. Let's go and we'll take a look at it. Doral ended up coming out on top in this game thanks to, in double overtime, they gambled, rolled the dice, went for it for a two-pointer, and their quarterback, Dustin Rodriguez, ended up crossing the goal line, got the two-pointer in, got the Firebirds the victory. Let's take a look. And there you have it. I mean, Doral, like we talked about, the impressive part isn't even covered in that game. 524 yards on the ground. I mean, we know it's a run-heavy team because Coach Eddie Delgado over there, he's old school from his days at Belen. They throw maybe 4 passes the whole game, something like that. And Mark Wilder, impressive. I mean, he's already over 1,000 yards in just 5 games. He had 239 on this night, 4 touchdowns. And their other running back, Jason Demetrius, also had like near 200. This is going to be a potent running attack for anyone to stop this season.
Yeah, you made the good point there at the top that when we talk about maybe a quieter, weaker slate on a Friday night, we're talking a lot of times about the games with state title, national title, in some cases down here in South Florida implications. But obviously, like high school football is about a lot more than that. And every team, it's kind of like college football, right? Some teams go in with the goal to win a national championship, but with some teams, winning a district title and getting kind of or winning 6, 7, 8 games is a big deal. And especially when these are, Eddie Delgado, I believe, he's at I think second or third year there at Doral after a long time at Belen. They made the playoffs last year, so he's got them, they're going to frustrate, what Belen has done to some back in the day would do to some really good teams. Like they're going to frustrate everyone. Yeah. Southridge, first year with new coach Pierre, I've never known how to pronounce his last name.
Pierre Senadis.
They are a team that not that long ago was a state title contender, and I think they obviously lose that game, but it's a little bit of a statement that they're back in that. They're not in the state title contender tier like they were 5, 6, 7 years ago, but they're back in that mix of those teams that can be competitive with pretty much anyone other than the elite of elite on any given Friday night, and a good team, right? Maybe not an elite national title team, but a very, those are 2 really good teams, and sometimes we don't talk about them enough probably on this show.
Yeah, and I owe an in-show apology. It's Jorge Rodriguez or George Rodriguez. I'm not sure how he pronounces it, but not Justin Rodriguez, like I said a minute ago. But yeah, I mean, overall for Doral, this is a team that they're in the same district with Columbus. So already that's going to be a tall order for them to break.
I think last year they were in with Homestead, if I remember correctly. And
another team that's doing well this year. So, I mean, we'll see how they can progress and they do better. I mean, it's interesting because in an era right now where there's so much spread, there's so much of the RPOs and all of that, this is a team that goes old school and just smashes the ball. Has a couple of quick backs that if they get loose can burn you. And then on the other side, you were talking about Pierre. It's tough down there Southridge is one of those traditional programs that's had a lot of success in the past, but has really fallen on hard times. And he's slowly starting to rebuild it down there. And it's always hard because like you mentioned Homestead. Right now, they're the powerhouse down there and have gotten a lot of the talent in the area, plus all the emergence of all these charter schools down there. It's kind of
Palmetto gets kids from the Goulds.
Palmetto does, exactly.
Richmond Heights.
So for him to build the Ridge, at least to this point, is pretty good. And Pierre, he's been there. He's done that. He was years at Booker T, where he was part of that dynasty over there. So he's got that pedigree, that tradition as a coach that he knows what it takes. So we'll see if they can take off in the coming weeks and make something big. And a team that we just mentioned, the Columbus Explorers, continue their role. They had a big showdown with Northwestern this week. Good to see that rivalry back in the regular season, because for a while there, they had some pretty close games back in the day when Teddy Bridgewater was there and Ja'Cory Harris before that. And then Columbus started to narrow the gap. And now they even won a few of those matchups in the past. This was the first time they had played since 2018 in the regular season. And Columbus came out on top. Let's take a look real quick at a Cedric Irvin touchdown as he led their offense once again.
Touchdown, let's go. Touchdown running by Cedric Irvin.
And there you have it. In Columbus, it's going to get interesting because coming up, they have a big showdown with Homestead that you mentioned before, kind of like the battle for supremacy there. And I heard this week that there's a chance. Now, nobody put this down yet. It's not official. But the GMAC week, there's a chance that they may also get Central on the schedule. That's obviously not official anywhere near yet. But the GMAC is trying to make some interesting north-south matchups this year for late in October. So some tests coming up for a team that has its sights set on potentially winning Class 4M this year.
Yeah, they obviously it was an interesting game on Friday night. A lot of injuries for Northwestern. I know Coach Dave Dunn was not 100% pleased with the way they played, but they made a huge stand at the end. I think their last 3 drives of the game for Northwestern ended with an interception, a fumble recovery, and a goal line stand turnover on downs at the end. I mean, there was kind of no doubt that Columbus was really good. And even against a shorthanded Northwestern team, I think they're in that elite mix right now. I think them against Central might be. We've talked about Central and Chaminade as 2 teams that might be on a different tier than everyone else this year. I'd really love to see the Columbus Central showdown because you just know Columbus, they're not going to get blown out, right? Like they're just not that kind of. They're extremely well coached. They've got a really good running back. They've got a really solid defense. Like they're the kind of team that is gonna, they're just gonna be in there in every game. And I think them against Central will be a really interesting matchup. In the same way that I think them against Northwestern, would have loved to see Northwestern obviously 100% healthy.
Right.
But I think either way, it would have been a great game probably either way.
Yeah,
It was.
And a rough patch right now for the Bulls because, with Teron Dickens going down, it looks like he may have the rumor was, again, we didn't hear the official word, but a broken collarbone.
We know it was a shoulder injury of some kind based on.
Yeah, which that sounds like it's going to keep him out maybe at least a few weeks. And then on top of the fact that Jamari Ford was already out, Adam Moore was out. So shorthanded, and then there's no breaks in their schedule because, they have Norland coming up. They have Central in 2 weeks. After that, there's a chance, speaking of that GMAC, they're probably going to get one of the southern end of the county's powerhouses too. So, and that's the way they always want it. But then when you're in a situation like that where you're missing, although their backup quarterback did a pretty good job of kind of staying afloat.
Calvin Russell, freshman wide receiver who apparently hadn't played quarterback since he was 10 years old in like a game. Obviously, he ran for almost 100 yards, up and down as a passer, as you'd kind of expect, but made one huge throw at the end, a 60-yard gain to get them into position to score at the end. And he's the future for them. And I think they feel like they're really good about the future after what they saw on Thursday night.
He's a slender guy, but he reminds me a little bit, like if he puts on a little weight, he kind of has that Teddy Bridgewater kind of physique to him, tall, except he's lefty. Which is the difference.
And Teddy was out there on Thursday, we should say, drawing up some plays, throwing warm-up passes with him at the start of the second half. So
it made Good Morning Football, the segment where he was drawing the plays up for him. They captured somebody.
Pretty cool experience if you're a freshman quarterback that you're thrust into action and not expecting it all. And there's Teddy Bridgewater giving you words of wisdom. Not bad. That's why we love Teddy, right?
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, definitely. I mean, and for people that don't know or haven't heard, Teddy, every Dolphins game, I remember in the preseason, he had his Bulls shirt on. He still roots for his alma mater every chance he gets. He's in touch with everything going on in the high school football world still. So good to see. And we may be seeing Teddy start Thursday out of necessity if Tua can't go.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
That ought to be interesting. But yeah, we mentioned Central as well, and again transitioning to them, pretty comfortable win over Dillard. Although it was interesting, the game was tied up early on at 7. And then it seemed like one hit just turned the momentum of that game. After Christopher Johnson of Dillard broke a 60-yard touchdown, Dillard's driving again with a chance to take the lead. And we couldn't get a good view of who hit him exactly, but pretty much got knocked out of the game. They were worried about potential concussion, so he never came back. And after that, it's like Dillard basically, it sapped the life right out of their offense. and Central just got on a roll. So let's take a look at a play. Keon Jenkins, FIU commit. What a heart on this kid. I mean, he ended up having 2 touchdown passes, but his touchdown run was interesting. As you'll take a look here, he dives toward the end zone, takes a pretty nasty hit. Let's see this.
Gotta be close to the one.
Now you see that how he went out of bounds. He afterwards said that he's the one that hit the defender. So, but two of his teammates literally picked him up and carried him back to the sideline because that's how shaken up he was in the moment it happened. But Keon was a former cornerback growing up, so he said, "I love delivering the hits myself." So it seemed like he was fine. Their backup quarterback came in and was able to finish off the game, Dylan Tulloch, and he threw a couple touchdown passes. Yes.
I had to start a lot of last year when Keon Jenkins was hurt with a finger injury.
So it shows you the depth. It shows you the depth of the Rockets. I mean, you know, David, you've seen them a few times now. I mean, obviously they started the year with a bang with that big win over IMG, and they just continue to be on a roll. The Bulls, I can't remember right now off the top of my head if Central does play NMB this week, a much improved NMB team. Yep. But then after that comes the showdown with the neighborhood rival. It's always good.
Yeah, we'll see if Teron Dickens is good to go. If he is, and Jamari Ford's out there, who's been dealing with an injury, and then
becomes a much better matchup.
Yeah, that'll be a great game. If not, it probably still will be, because how often is a Central Northwestern game a blowout? There was one last year, I guess. I think in the GMAC game was the blowout. But you don't bank on that.
They tend to be fairly even. Just
weird
all
stuff
those kids
happens, fumbles,
know each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. All the emotions are high and so forth. And emotions were high. We're going to transition now. That was last week's action. Now we want to jump in and do a recruiting segment here. And the focus this week is going to be on Stranahan's Hykeem Williams, who declared his intentions to go to Florida State University in a very, very, very interesting, very eventful way, I guess you could say. He really put it out there that he was going to FSU. A pretty cool ceremony I got to go to on Friday at his high school, at his gym at Stranahan High School. And let's take a look first. I mean, this was an entrance worthy of one of those like MMA fights, or maybe a boxer coming out. You had the smoke and the music going. He was hyping up the crowd. Just take a look. I mean, you can't get a bigger entrance
Never
than
seen that before.
Right? I mean, we were talking about, I'll set this up before I say who was there. I'll set up the next segment here. We're going to show you the actual commitment. Of course, he had to play a little bit of hat games like everybody does. The cool part was they had 6 glass cases that were rotating with all 6 of his finalists, with caps of all 6 of his finalists on a table there. And then here you go. Of course, he had a little bit of a swerve, but in the end, he told everybody he was going to FSU, and look who showed up.
So I can't do it, but I'm gonna handle it. That's right. Now let me stop playing with this. Hey, bring me that jersey. Bring me that jersey. Bring me that jersey. And I'll be taking out the team.
Well, for those of you maybe not familiar with who they were, it was FSU greats Peter Warrick and Snoop Minnis, two of their best wide receivers of all time. So that was pretty cool. They got to show up there. Even at Dante Culpepper, whose kid goes to Stranahan,
great basketball player.
Great basketball player, was there to help to support him. But mainly, and we talked to Peter Warrick a little bit afterward, and he was saying, like, yeah, he's never seen that, like, with the sparks shooting out and the smoke and the music and all that. Like his high school ceremony was just sign a paper and be done with it. But it shows you how all that's changed. But David, on a serious note, what impact do you see Hykeem bringing? Because the Noles over the past few years, the receiving core has really been one of the weak spots. It's a little better this year with some of the guys they've added, but he's going to be a guy that I'm sure can make an impact right away next season.
Yeah, well, we just saw Johnny Wilson for them on a week ago have one of their biggest games in a while, and Hykeem's not 6'7". But he is 6'4", something like that. Fantastic basketball player. Really, like a center, like a kind of like grinder, undersized, 6'4" center basically. And I think they're still just kind of scratching the surface with his potential. I think just that size alone is going to make it. He's big and strong too. It's not like he's 6'4" and skinny. Like, he's going to have a chance to contribute early, but I think there's still like a ton of untapped potential with him. He really only started playing football as a freshman. He's kind of been a better basketball player in high school than he has been a football player. Just at 6'4" and the way he plays, you're not going to get a whole lot of Division I attention. But I think his ceiling's really high. They're going to have to develop him a little bit. I think he could be a little bit more polished as a football player. He could use that size a little bit better. But, I look at just watching the way he plays basketball, the way he's so physical, he's a bruiser. I think that is why I'm pretty high on his potential as a basketball player. And kind of, there's any of the concerns you have about him in terms of like a basketball player going to play football. He doesn't play basketball player in that finesse style that kind of stereotype is kind of used against guys. And it makes me think that he's gonna be successful at the next level.
And let's take a look now at what Hykeem had to say about picking the Noles and when he kind of knew that he was dead set on going to Tallahassee.
Oh man, it's amazing feeling. Overjoyed, overwhelmed, feeling great. I just feel like I'm in a good spot.
Can you talk about the decision for FSU? What led to the decision to choose
I just made sure I reviewed all my choices, made sure I went over everything. Man, it's so crazy. Like, one minute I was lost. At the beginning I was lost, just going through all, and then it just hit me like, just sit, relax, you know what I'm saying? Just view what every school have for you, and view what they don't have for you. View how every school can benefit you, and view how every school can. It's just going over my pros and cons throughout the process. Building a relationship with coaches, players, former players, future recruits, Hall of Famers, people that's played under that coaching staff, the atmosphere. I asked so many questions, and it's all boiled down to, wherever I was comfortable with, and it was Florida State.
You got emotional when you talk about your mom and the process that she went through. Just talk about how influential she was in your process, you growing up and making this decision.
Man, if I tell you what we went through, you wouldn't believe it. It's been a long journey. It's only been my mom. I grew up with just my mom my whole life. So just to like realize where we came from and where we're at right now, it's amazing. Man, it's crazy. Like, I would never thought I'd be right here right now.
When did you know for sure FSU? Like, more or less, when did you know?
Maybe 2 months ago.
How much did the start that they've had kind of just like reinforce that for you?
I mean, at the end of the day, I don't really look at the wins and losses. I just look at how they play. Because a team can get beat by 40 and still be the hardest working team in the nation. So it's just about how they work.
Well, seeing the progress though, that's more and more.
Facts.
Not so much the wins and losses, but
Facts.
seeing how much better, like the progress they're making. How much of that kind of.
Well, that was definitely a plus to see what they're doing, how everything's going right now. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to see what he can do. I mean, like you said, I mean, there's definitely a big opportunity for them. This is a program that just cracked the top 25 for the first time in a while, and 4-0 under Mark Norvell, and trending upward right now. I mean, they have a few games that are going to be interesting in the next couple of weeks to see how much further they can progress. But David, besides Hykeem, who can we look forward to maybe locally that's a big undecided recruit? Anybody coming up that maybe either might make a decision, or who are you most interested in seeing kind of where they kind of choose their college commitment coming up maybe in the next couple of weeks, the next few weeks?
There's not really anyone I'm looking at imminently. Maybe you never know, like a guy like Edwin Joseph, who we'll talk to in a couple of minutes here, but who's been kind of on the rise pretty quickly. Picked up a couple offers. He could be a guy maybe late in November, something like that. The number one guy though still has to be Ruben Bain. I mean, he's the best defensive player in South Florida right now, and I expect that commitment to go a long time, maybe all the way up until December in the early signing period. But recruiting happens so fast now. We're kind of running out of those big time. I think every 5-star now in the area is committed, with Hykeem committing. Yeah. So Ruben Bain's one. Damari Brown is another cornerback from American Heritage, who is planning to take a couple of visits next month. So I would say, in the next month, I wouldn't be surprised if he makes a choice. But it happens quickly, but there's still obviously some really big fish out there for guys to go after.
Well, speaking of Edwin Joseph, let's take a look now. You talked to him, and let's see what he had to say about his recent recruiting trip and where he stands right now.
We're joined now by Edwin Joseph, two-way star for Chaminade Madonna, 3-star athlete, but quickly rising in a lot of people's recruiting estimation. Wanted to talk a little bit about this breakout year you're having, Edwin, turning into a two-way player. But first of all, you were just at Penn State this weekend. How'd it go?
Oh, it great. I loved it. The atmosphere was great. The game was great. Everybody at the game, the coaching staff was very into it. I loved it. They were talking to me well, talking to my parents well. I just had a great time in general.
I wrote about you a little bit last week and the year you're having. You were obviously a very good wide receiver. I think we put you on second team All-County last year. You had a very good junior season. Now as a senior, part of this Chaminade team that is a national title contender, loaded offense, a bunch of good wide receivers. You're leading the team in catches, but you're also playing defense for the first time since basically your Pee-wee days. Talk to me a little bit about how that came to be and how that transition has been going, because a lot of colleges have kind of taken notice of you on that side of the ball too.
It started off 7-on-7, playing defensive back on 7-on-7. Coach Ricky, I played 7-on-7 with him since I was 11, 12. So, he suggested I just go on defense for one tournament. I did good, and I just kept on playing and making plays, locking up the best. So, I tried. He told me I should play it try playing it this year. And so I ended up asking my parents, and I asked my mom. Asked my coach, and he was okay with it. So then we went on from there.
And how's it? It obviously has gone well in the high school season. What is you're hitting obviously 7-on-7. You're not hitting guys. What has it been like, kind of doing the dirty work that's required on the defensive side of things?
Coverage wise, it just translates from 7-on-7. Because 7-on-7 really kind of helps you with the technical part of the playing position, but. Just translating your physicality onto defense. I used on offense, so it definitely was great. It's been a great change for me playing both sides this year.
And as I mentioned, you had a couple big offers going into the year. Penn State was one of them, but since you made this two-way switch, Miami, Florida State, Louisville, a bunch all came at once earlier this month. Just what has this month been like for you? Starting to get some of that attention I'm sure you were hoping for a long time.
This month been crazy because our recruitment changed like drastically. Because at first it wasn't really big. I wasn't really that big. I made a couple plays. I made a lot of plays, but now definitely my recruitment just went up, rose like a lot. So it's been great this last month. Just stay humble and keep on working. It's been great though.
And then I want to just wrap you up with this one. You guys at Chaminade have, you're way up in the national rankings right now. You get to play with Jeremiah Smith, JoJo Trader, Davion Goss, CJ Bailey. Your offense is stacked. What is it like to play in that offense right now?
Our offense is great. We all trust each other. We all believe in each other. Like when somebody goes out, we all trust the other person to stay in. So we don't never do anything selfish. All our coaching staff believe in each other. They trust each other. So it's like offense and defense like a family. All our receivers like Dwayne Thomas, Cal Washington, JoJo, Jeremiah, all of them. We all just like close. So when somebody's hurt, we don't try to play through it, even though that's how we like playing all the years. Like we don't try to play through it. We try to like get us rest and let the other people eat. So it's been great. This whole offensive core, everybody's just been great to each other, like family.
And how much? Obviously, you guys want to win a state title. That's goal number one. But how much is there talk about national title around Chaminade right now?
We that's our goal. We don't really talk about it because we got to go week by week first. Win the week, and then we can worry about stuff when we get to it. But, we just worry about winning the game, and end up winning the state championship.
Well, we'll see where Edwin ends up. We'll see where all these other of South Florida's best recruits end up in the next few weeks as we get closer and closer to that December signing day. Next up, we're going to get to one of the segments that everybody loves, and hopefully you watch the whole show and then just fast forward to see if we're picking your team or not. But we're going to start with our picks of the week for week 6 of the high school football season. First up, let's look at this interesting matchup of unbeatens here. Fort Lauderdale going to Blanche Ely. Fort Lauderdale trying to earn some respect and kind of think that they have a turnaround season going. But Ely's been interesting because even like in a preseason scrimmage, they kind of hung in there with Cardinal Gibbons, which opened up a lot of eyes. And they've stayed on course. They had a game postponed, but then last week they come up with a big win over Coconut Creek, another team that's been making some waves as well. Kind of where do you kind of see this one early in the season as these districts begin to play their pivotal games?
I like Ely just because I think we've seen a little bit more from them. Like you said, win against Coconut Creek is something close to a signature win, considering how Coconut Creek has started the year. And kind of, like you said, a moral victory maybe, but hanging with Gibbons in the preseason. I know it's just preseason, but I think that says a lot about where they are, just like from a talent athleticism standpoint, that they can hang with a team like that and then beat a team like Coconut Creek that they took Western overtime a couple of weeks ago. Like that's a really good team by all accounts. So this will be the first real test, I think, for Fort Lauderdale. So I'll go with Ely just because I think they've shown a little bit more. But obviously Lauderdale could win this, and that would be a statement for them that they're right up there.
Yeah, and I'm with you on this one. I think just the competition that you've seen Ely play so far is what changes it for me, especially the ones we'd mentioned. But if Fort Lauderdale does pull it off, it's going to be interesting because next week after that they play Coconut Creek, so they're kind of right in that thick of that competitive district schedule there. So it could be a time for them to really emerge. But yeah, I'm with you. I think the Tigers will pull it off. And for our next game, we're going to transition to one that by ranking is a big game, and in the past they've had some big ones. I mean, I remember the days when you had Tracy Howard for Miramar, and facing Aquinas, and they would pull it off. They got big wins back then, sometimes against St. Thomas, but St. Thomas has been so good with those running backs and with their defense this year. I mean, they shut out Western. That's the big game. Miramar and Aquinas this week. Number 3 in our poll versus number 13 in our poll. Kind of a tall order for Miramar. I'm going to go with the Raiders. I'm going to go Jordan Lyle, Jamari Sands, those guys. Let's see what happens. But what do you think on that one?
Yeah, I mean, they've won every game this year by like 14 plus points. So, and they've played good teams. They shut out Western, like you said, blew out Cocoa, beat Treasure Coast last weekend. obviously have a win against St. Joe's Prep at the start of the year. Actually, that was only an 11-point win, but that's a nationally top 25 matchup. So I'll go with St. Thomas. No disrespect to Miramar, but St. Thomas is, again, we keep they're kind of a little bit the forgotten man in that central Chaminade conversation, I think.
Yeah, they've just been playing so much either out of town or against out of town teams.
Exactly.
They just have been kind of off the radar. But that's about to change with this game. And then next week, I know they have the big district showdown with Dillard, which has been gunning for them for about a year now. So we'll see. But and then of course, got to talk about the game of the week. Though by far, whenever one of these power elite teams faces another, it's always a big deal. But in this one, I think especially American Heritage taking the trip down to Cardinal Gibbons. These two have been rivals in the same district in the past. Now they're in the same region in that loaded Class 2M. Both are undefeated. Well, no, not both are undefeated. Heritage actually lost a more than respectable loss to Chaminade. Gibbons is undefeated, however. And the interesting thing in this matchup is how Gibbons at the beginning was winning ugly, winning with defense. All of a sudden, their offense has come alive, and they are scoring points galore. I mean, granted, not against the kind of competition they're going to face this week, but still, they hung 63 on Key West the other day, and they were in the 40s, I believe, before that. And that atmosphere is going to be crazy on Friday night because those two just do not like each other. And this was the stepping stone for Gibbons to get to the status where they're at now, where they're a 3-time state champion. But can they keep it up? Can they hold their place there and continue to win this rivalry? Or is this the year Heritage takes it back and rolls with it?
Yeah, I mean, it's the game of the week for a reason. I have not seen either of these two teams really in person yet, aside from Gibbons in the preseason. So I'm looking forward to getting up to Fort Lauderdale on Friday for that one. I'll take Heritage, kind of based on nothing more than a hunch and the fact that, I think between Mark Fletcher and Brandon Ennis, they might have the two best players on the field. And in a game like this, where they're so even across the board, have such similar resumes so far, I'll kind of take like the superstar making the big play, right? Big players make big time plays in big situations. So that's kind of my justification there.
The old Michael Irvin. Yep. But yeah, I'm with you on that in the sense that I wouldn't be surprised if Gibbons can pull this off, especially if Gibbons has a great game.
And probably the edge of quarterback, although Dylan Risky's been a little up and down, but he was a first-team All-County guy last year. So
yeah. I mean, that's where I think it comes down to. If Heritage can control and run the ball well the way they have with Mark Fletcher, then it's going to be a long night for Gibbons. But I think it comes down to those two factors. Can they run the football? And then how will Dylan Rizek play? Will he handle Heritage's defense? You know they're going to come after him. What kind of a game does he play? He has to play well. If not, he's going to be in trouble, and then Heritage can really rack up the points on them. So I'm going to go with Heritage only based on that, but I think it is going to be a thriller. I think it's going to be a close game between the two. And who knows? There could be a rematch of this down the road if the seeding breaks a certain way later in 2M. I mean, you name it. There's team after powerhouse team after powerhouse team in that class, so it's going to be fun. And that'll wrap it up for our third episode of Titletown South Florida. Make sure to check us out, everyone. We are on MiamiHerald.com, on YouTube. You know where to find us. Hopefully, you've been watching for the last 3 weeks. We're going to continue to bring you the best of the best in South Florida. We're going to keep expanding this show little by little. We had a little more recruiting this week. And next week, let's see if we can keep on, hitting some of those top teams all around town. And we'll see you then. And we appreciate you watching. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next week.